Welcome, everyone. And thank you guys for attending the monthly webinar, the April monthly webinar. We've been doing this for the last 3 months. It's been very successful, and hopefully you guys are able to get something out of it. I would just ask that everybody put your phones on mute unless you're asking a question or making a statement. Thank you. Just one of the first things that we do when we have these calls is we like to have like a small round table where we allow you guys to ask any and every question that you have that comes to mind when you first arrive. So we want to open up that time frame to allow you guys to do so. Very important that you guys say what you have on mind, first thing that comes to mind when you come to these calls. So we want to open that up. Does anybody have any questions, anything that you brought to this meeting in anticipation on getting out of today? Is there something that's been happening in the field that you would like to discuss? Or is there something as of late that you have that you want to express that you might want to see if others are experiencing the same thing? Any of those out there?
I got one for you. Is it possible in the future that, I work for a consultant, that the consultant can buy their own iPads and import HeadLight because it allows us to put more software that we use and makes us more efficient?
Gotcha. You can actually, yes, it's no problem for you to bring your own iPad. We would ask that you guys inform us if you have like an MDM, a mobile device management system or something like that in place, to whereas we can kind of work with you guys to make sure that you have the latest and greatest and that you're able to use the device as expected. So we have no problem with you guys bringing your own iPads, or if you decided to purchase your own iPads.
I hate to butt into the consultant side, David, but if there's some apps you need to do your work, I'm sure HeadLight would provide those for you.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about in specific, some of it's proprietary, like getting to our servers. I work for Volker. Very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get to our servers through that iPad. Microsoft products, we don't have them on my iPad. Very difficult to do a lot. So, for instance, everybody uses electronic field books now. The days of the orange books are almost done. So we keep that on our proprietary server. I cannot access that. If I could do both the HeadLight and our electronic field books on site at the same time. As it is now, I got to come into the office and get on my laptop. So I'm just trying to find a way to be more efficient.
David, it may be possible. I know our people on the DOTD side, we're able to access our field books through our network using Citrix. So you'd have to check with, your IT side and see what their requirements are. But the iPad is able to connect directly to a server. I could show you a few things on how we connect if you would like.
Yeah, I'm game.
Take that back to your people and see if they can figure out how to do yours.
Yeah. I'm game. We got to go through, that gets out of my lane real quick, how to get to our servers, proprietary servers.
Thanks for that question, Dave. Appreciate it. We also have Amanda asked the question, any hope for a phone app in the future? That is something that we have discussed about getting a phone app for you guys to be able to use in that manner. That's something that's kind of down the road. It's still in further discussion. So hopefully we do get feedback in regards to that. And as soon as we hear more about it, we will be able to deliver that to you. But that is a great question in regards to a phone app. Any particular reason, Amanda, why you would want to have that phone app, I would ask? I think she's typing in. But yeah, just drop it in the chat and let us know any of those specifics. And maybe that's something that we can solve for outside of waiting on the phone app.
Can I answer part of what she just said?
Yes.
Philip? So, Amanda, believe it or not, I have 2 iPads in my office for your group. So they will be coming to you shortly.
Awesome. That should solve a little bit.
Yeah, that should solve a little bit of your problem. And they also have built-in built-in wireless, so built-in connectivity.
Hey, Les, when is the labs going to start using materials?
So we've turned them on, and I have gone around. Thanks for that question, Matt. So I have gone into the software. Kevin Barbier and I went in and added all of the lab personnel to all the projects in your areas. So really all that does for now is give them access to see stuff like any notes you might be putting in, or being able to get directly to your form to see what you filled out. There's not a whole lot of help there for the materials people. So what they are really looking for is the complete LIMS system whenever we get there, right? So when HeadLight builds out all of the forms required to enter test results, that's when they'll really start to use it. We do have and I'll just announce it on here, I guess, that we do have a little test project going on where HeadLight has created a test results form. And basically all it is similar to the supporting image form, except for you can add images and also you can add a file. And so technically the lab could go in and create a form on any sample and upload their test results. So if they, if they're handwriting or filling out some kind of a spreadsheet when they break cylinders or run their sieve analysis or any of that kind of stuff, they can upload those results directly to the sample. It's just in testing mode right now, but we encourage people to use it. So any lab folks that are on here, if you want to know about it and try using it, might be a little double work for a while, even with the LIMS system. I know we've been having major problems with that, even though OTS is on to a solution for that. But one thing that does is it's kind of a precursor to what the LIMS module from HeadLight is going to be, right? It's going to be direct to the sample. So those test results will be tied directly to that sample, and then the PE or inspectors, whoever created the sample, be able to view those right there within the app. So, they are using it right now, Matt. They do have they at least have access to it, just not a way to enter their test results yet fully.
And are y'all going to provide some additional training to them, I guess, when we start?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Kevin has really been testing down in O2 the supporting image form. HeadLight is working on getting that tied into their ATM. So that's really the holdup with that right now, because there's no really point in putting in test results if it doesn't go to the ATM or the 2059. Just want to get our terms right. I know we switched terminology there, so everybody knows we're talking about the 2059. And so it looks like, and you can actually in that form select a pass or fail for the sample, and there are some stages you can go through for it to be submitted and then approved by the DLE. And so once it hits that final status, it will go over to the ATM as a pass or fail. So once we get there, that's a pretty big step to where we're headed, until we get those individual forms built out, like where you can enter the test results for your cylinders or soils or whatever it might be. Yeah, it's a big missing piece to the puzzle. I know exactly where you're coming from with that.
Thanks, Les. Any other questions that we have? Anything that comes to mind?
Hey, Philip.
Yes.
I know a couple of my inspectors, they like to use the website on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
That way it uploads straight away. They always have their phone with them, use it to take pictures and stuff. They kind of prefer that versus the iPad app.
Gotcha.
For whatever reason.
All right.
Can I take that one, Phil?
Yeah.
We strongly do not recommend that from headquarters. I know that people like to just use their phone. I don't know what the deal is about carrying the iPad. It was never really an issue for me, but having that iPad, first of all, when you use the app, it collects your GPS data. That might not seem like much, but if it ever goes to court, you know how this stuff happens. If it goes to trial, that background data is very important. also using your phone, just so everybody knows and we're all clear, when you use your phone on a project, it is admissible as evidence. So just keep that in mind when you're using your personal device. That's why we passed out devices. So that's why we are against it. I have recently heard of lots of folks doing that, especially taking pictures with your, especially if you have an iPhone and then airdropping it over to the iPad, which is not quite as bad, but still you're not getting that exact GPS data in the background. And not just GPS, there's actually a lot of different stuff that HeadLight collects in the background, not just GPS, like even the way the iPad's faced and just a lot of metadata that comes with that. So we advise against it. Yes, you can get to the web version on any device and use it. Just so we're all aware of that, we just don't recommend it at all. Thanks for that. Bringing that up though, because that's something that needs to be said.
Even to take it a step further, it's not function friendly to do it on the iPhone. So even if they believe that they're taking another step of making, that's easier for them, it doesn't give the functionality that they need to work smoothly, just like it does on an iPad. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So,
yeah. Well, the only issue that I have with my iPad is that keeping it charged. A lot of times I can't charge it from my vehicle
yes.
For most of the day, and if I start off at 6 o'clock in the morning, by noon my iPad's dying because I can't charge my iPad during that time frame because I'm away from my truck. I usually lose my iPad about 1 o'clock in the afternoon because it dies.
Do you have a car charger for it?
I do, but if I'm not at my car for that whole time, it's hard to keep it charged.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, my truck is available on site, but I can't always be at my vehicle for that long a period of time for it to just give it a small charge. So I'm usually fighting battery life by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and if I have to work till 6 p.m., that's 4 hours without my iPad.
Okay. Is the iPad dying quicker than it used to over time?
It depends on how much information I'm putting in. The other day, I had brought my iPad out there, and there was a lot of activity on the project. So I was taking a lot of pictures, taking a lot of notes, and it died pretty quickly. Okay. Other than that, it might, if I don't use it at all and just have it on the project, it might last a little bit longer. But as soon as I start using it, taking pictures, making notes, and stuff like that, it just goes quickly, very quickly. And especially if it's a hot day, it doesn't last very long.
Hey, wait, we might have to check out your device and see if that's something device specific. I would probably tell you to put in a support ticket and have our support team see if we need to get you a new device or if it's just something going on with that particular device. Okay. So you can send us an email at support at headlight.com because I think it might be something going on with your battery over time. I don't know how old the device is, but we can kind of look into that. Okay.
Okay.
Mine lasts 2 or 3
I mean,
days.
it's as old as
yeah, that's what it shouldn't die off that quick. So I think it might be something wrong with that device. It's my initial thought that you might have a device issue itself. That's why it's going out so quick.
Okay. Well, it could be the battery life too. I mean, yeah. Usually I put it on the charger in the afternoon and remove it the next day. It might be overcharged, possibly.
Okay. We'll see. We'll check that one out. I'll get with you.
Okay.
All right.
I'll get with my supervisor and submit a ticket.
All right. What district are you in, by the way?
03.
03. Okay.
We're actually headed there next. So we started swapping out iPads. Yours might actually be on the list already.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's what I'm
thinking.
So
the solution's on its way.
Awesome.
I wanted to follow up. I Amanda did have a last part of hers where she said a lot of inspectors in the field say they have connectivity problems. We have been hearing that, and I reached out to OTS for a solution for it. I was actually trying to get some hotspots to put in the offices. I know some of the older Wi-Fi's were not working well. I actually got an approval on that, and then from our DOTD people, and then OTS kind of got involved, and now they're trying to do something with some wireless access points at the locations. So we're still working on it. We are aware that there are some connectivity problems. Just if your inspectors are having connectivity problems, make sure they know how to work offline. That's kind of one of the biggest deals that we've been mentioning lately. So.
All right. Appreciate that, Les. And that's something we can probably put in the newsletter on how to work offline if you are having connectivity issues. So we'll keep that in mind for next month. So on today, if we don't have any more questions, we are having 2 demonstrations on today. All right. The first one is we're going to actually show you guys how to find samples in the material app, as well as how to access forms in Fieldbook, as well as materials. And then thereafter, Les is going to go ahead and dive into sample disposition. Any questions around those 2 topics before we kind of get into it? Everybody good? Awesome. Let's go ahead and pull up on my side. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Appreciate that.
Yep.
So when you guys go into the material side of things, or the materials app, as well as the web, you'll notice that that first page that actually pops up allows you guys to see all the samples that you've done on a particular project or any project out there. All right. You'll notice that right under that green plus, there is a button that says filter. You can easily click on that and it brings it up to the filter results where you can filter out the user, you can filter out the projects, you can also filter out by materials. One of the first things that you need to do is when you get into this section is hit the reset. That brings you back to square one where you don't have a specific user selected, you don't have a project selected, or you don't have a material selected. One of the cool things about this is I can come in here and I can put in a sample date if I don't know exactly who's the user or the, or the project or the materials. You can come in and select that date to find different samples. But the easiest way that I've found to be able to find out a specific sample is by selecting
Right here with the mouse.
So I'm going to start off by just using one of the sandbox project, which is 2.0, which is LADOTD Training 2.0. This training project allows for you guys to go in there and you can kind of test out, play around with, samples. You can play around in Fieldbook creating observations. So this is your go-to. You can never hurt this project. I just want to let you guys know that you can always go in there and kind of practice on anything that we're going over today. If you do have your iPad, you can follow along with what I'm about to do right now, step by step. So after I select the project, you guys can mute for me, please. Thank you. So you notice that once I set the filters, now I'm able to see every sample that was created on that project. And this was a lot of those who went through the materials training. These are a lot of the samples that they created, as well as materials labs and stuff like that, who all created samples inside of the materials app. I can go in here, I can search, find exactly a sample that I want to look at. I can also even go further with my filter search and only search exactly for my samples. So now that I have the project selected, I can then go in and select the specific user, which is me right there. I'll go ahead and set that. And you'll notice that I don't have any that pop up. If I wanted to go and select someone else, I would make sure to go back and then hit reset. And then I can go ahead and search by that user's name or by that project. This is how you would be able to go in and find exactly a specific sample that you're looking for. Let's see. So let's pull up a sample just to give everybody a quick look at some of the samples that's on here. So I have this one. Pull this up. Let's see. It's this one right here. All right, this one was done just a while back. And I'm just going to show you guys a glimpse of inside of that sample for those who might not be too familiar with how those samples look inside of materials. Give it just a second. Let's see.
There's the headlight we all know and love.
It's probably because I'm using my my master login to be able to see it. But yeah, here you go. This is just one sample that was created inside of there where you can see all of the information as well as all of the details on this specific sample. Not much really here because of the simple fact that it is just a test sample that was done on a practice project. But one of the cool things is you can go down here and create a form for that specific sample, or you can search for a form like your structural concrete report, as well as your salt, moisture, and density, and some of those other forms that you guys would attach to a specific sample. So what I can do is I can actually go in here and start a form inside of here where you guys will be able to see some of the forms that actually exist on this project. Let's look at some that are already created. So for example, you have this form that was created by me in February the 15th. You can actually look at some of those forms and click on those. And all you would have to do is to see the forms in the material side of things is hit the collapse menu button. And from there, you would click on forms where it would house all of the forms that are in the materials app. This is just one of them where you see the sample ID. This is a supporting image form. So on this form right here, all we are doing is saying, hey, I have additional details that I want to provide about that sample, and then you can attach a photo. Now, there are many other forms, like I just named a few, that you can have attached to a sample. Some of those are very specific to the type of sample, but then you have the other one like Les stated, which is the limbs form that you can also have attached that we are testing out with Kevin in District 2. And then you also have the supporting image form as well, where he's able to go in there and just attach any document or photo to that specific sample. Now, the cool thing about it is I can also access forms, not just on the material side of things, but I can also access it on the Fieldbook side of things. So I want to show you guys how I can access it on the Fieldbook side of things. So just keep in mind and remember this sample that we're actually looking at right here. And what I will do is I'll go over to Fieldbook and show you guys how we can access those forms from there as well. So we have that form that I just showed you. And now you can come over here and you'll see forms are also in here as well. So that same form that I just showed you in the material side of things is also here for me to be able to come in here and pull it up on this side. So I can go to fill out that form to make any changes or edits to that form on the Fieldbook side. And I can also have that included with my information that I submit with my DWR on the Fieldbook side.
You created it on the material side, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because is there a place, as you know, we're doing a standalone, we're not tied to the site manager, and we're just now starting to get into some sampling here in a little bit.
Okay.
Is there a place where I could learn something about it? Because I'm quite the idiot as far as materials go right now.
Yes, we do have, you have the Academy side on materials where you can actually go in to the materials and be able to go right here to Academy. And then it will show you all tutorials that you might need, quick videos, those micro tutorial videos on how you would add a form to a sample.
Made my week. Thank you.
Yes, awesome. Any other
Let me just add real quick right here too. Sorry to interrupt there, Phil. But David, if you want to, we can always send you a link to one of the materials classes that we ran last year. You could rewatch one of those too, if that helps. I think for the if you have something real specific in mind, like here, like Phil's exactly right. Going to the Academy is your best bet. But if you ever want that, just so you know, anybody, and I think even on the YouTube site, I think Les has loaded a materials class there as well.
I'll take all I can get.
Me too.
I do have a question on the material side. Right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, probably am, you cannot sample anything until the NTP is signed on a project, because the project technically does not exist. And that's a little problematic. Sometimes you'd like to go ahead and get some samples before the NTP gets signed. And that way, when it starts, the actual contract is signed and you can go ahead and launch, and you're not putting the contractor under the burden of waiting for all these sampling and results. Is there a way, and this is kind of aimed toward Les, is there a way, a workaround on that, or something that we can think about in the future?
It's something we've already kind of been thinking about, David. We brought that up a couple of years ago. So once LA DOTD is HeadLight only, we will pull, or I would say HeadLight will pull the initial project data from pre-construction. So after it's gone through all the project reviews and it's getting ready for bid, they'll go ahead and create a project. And at that point, once that project's in HeadLight, you can start dumping data in it. So at that point, you'll be able to start running samples and taking images of current how the project looks before you get started and that kind of stuff, because that's where we want to go, having the entire project in one location, right, from start to end. So
this the Seymour job we're on is a real weird beast. It's not one contract start to finish. It's, they call it early work packages, and every early work package is a separate contract. So we're in one, we're fixing to go to two. I need to do some sampling. I'd like to get some sand and gravel samples, but the contract's not signed yet. So I'm kind of in a bind, and when EWP 3 fires off in about August, I'm really going to be behind, me and the contractor will be behind the 8 ball. So I just wonder if there was anything there we could do.
I want to say that HeadLight already created the EWP 2 project for you guys. I want to say it's already there. So if it's there in HeadLight, I mean, you can start adding stuff to it.
Like, I can't get to it. Let me put it that way. I assume I have to be assigned that project. Is that correct?
I know that there was some discussion about that. Maybe HeadLight took it off. I'm not sure. Maybe they had to wait till it's signed.
And I'm asking here, as these things come online, do I have to be assigned that project, or as they come on, hey, I'm just automatically assigned?
For now, you'll be assigned, but in the future, there will be user roles to where you'll just, if you're part of that group, you're added to it automatically.
Yeah.
And for it, so it's probably just the fact we hadn't went through the process of getting assigned. So who would be the one to assign me?
Stephen Harity has the
Yeah.
ability to do that, or you know,
Gotcha.
me or Phil, pretty much any of us do, but
Right.
generally the PE on the project has the authority.
Roger. I'll thump Steve today. Thank you.
Let me see where that one's at on the Ashtor project side, in the pre-con, and because we're kind of artificially loading the EWP projects in to get some of the placeholder items. And I know there was some discussion as far as certain aspects of it will be treated as one contract, while other aspects of it are treated as individual contract. So it's definitely a different setup.
To add another layer to that, when you talked about creating those samples, Les, do we want to mention to them about having to use the sample plan in order to create samples at the moment?
I'm not sure where we're at with that project, Phil. I mean, I thought that a while back, I thought you guys were going to do some training for that CMAR group on how to use materials and sample plan. I believe we, you know, LADOT side, I believe we were okay with them using sample plan and materials for that project. So,
Okay.
yeah, I would say if we're going to show them materials, we need to show them sample plan and get them kind of started on how that works.
Gotcha. That's something I can work with David on. All right.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of like jump off the cliff and hope you grow wings.
Yeah, but we'll get you all wrapped up. I'll talk to you offline about that, David, and getting you set up. Okay.
10-4. Thank you much.
So Les, I'll go ahead and pass it to you to kind of talk about sample disposition.
Okay, thanks, Phil. I'll try to keep it short and sweet today since my voice is probably about to go out. Let me get my screen shared. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sample dispositions and even errors and omissions, because they're both similar. So maybe I can get some audience participation here. What's the difference between a sample disposition and an error and omission?
Sample disposition, you pretty much have a failing sample, whereas an error and omission, you keep asking for a delivery certificate and you never get it.
Yeah, you got it right there. I couldn't see, but it must have been Kevin. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. So there are a couple things, right? An error would be maybe where you sampled something, but you know, sampled some aggregate, but you only ran the sieve analysis and not the deleterious materials. And I'm probably speaking out of turn there. I don't know what all the testing is, but you know, that might be an error, but an omission is what Kevin's saying, where you've been trying to get the CD from the contractor and just can't seem to get it. And so you didn't do that at all. That would be an omission, right? So, so where do we put those things? Well, we've worked with HeadLight. They gave us some software a long time ago, actually, to do errors and omissions. And I'll just quickly show you where that is. So this is a project, and I'm picking on my old unit. I'm picking on one of their projects today. I've been doing some work in here because showing you this in the training project, it just doesn't have the right type of data. So this is HeadLight sample plan, where you go in to add sample types or sample requirements. And we'll just pick this soil blanket here. Let me move my stuff out of the way so I can see. So you see this box here. If you check this on or off, on obviously is when you want to type something in here. And I just typed something in this this example. So this is where, you know, if you forgot to sample the plastic soil blanket for the project or whatever happened, this is where you would go enter your error and omission wording here to show up on the ATM 2059. So this is HeadLight's view, right? So this is how you would do it here. What I found is that in most cases across the state, most people have a Word document or Excel sheet or something like that. They're just keeping up and they just attach it to the 2059 as an addendum and, you know, turn it in that way. Well, we actually have a way you can enter that into the software now, as long as you're using the HeadLight ATM to turn into your district lab. So this is where you would find that, and I'll show you in a little while where that shows up on the ATM, but I wanted to go over the disposition part first. So we talked a little bit about what a disposition is, right? And so one of the things that I always hated was I would get to the end of a project and I would have several failing samples on that project as an inspector. And then I would have to, at the end, you have to do a disposition, and there is a way to enter that into Site Manager. I think I have that pulled up. Maybe I can show you. Let me grab it. So, this is a failing sample in Site Manager. And so you can go here and enter disposition remarks, or just click on this, I want to say twice maybe, and it shows up. So you could enter a disposition here. This was always back at the office, right? I didn't have access to this in the field, so it often got overlooked when I had a failing sample. And then at the end of the project, sometimes 3 years later, you have to go in here and remember what happened to that sample. Did you resample it with 2 additional samples and get them to pass, or did you just not use it? So that kind of thing. And so that's where you would enter it in Site Manager. And so we were talking with HeadLight a couple months ago about needing a place for dispositions that would be more real time in the field. And so materials and sample plans seem like logical places to put that. Let me see if I can find it. So here is the dashboard for materials. And obviously most of you know that the dashboard in materials and the dashboard in sample plan, I'll switch back here. This dashboard and sample plan are almost identical. So this works in both places. But you can see on this project, there's a few failing samples here. So I picked one of those. This is the new part. So usually you're looking at this in a custom view to see what your passing and failing and created samples are. They added this tab here called failing samples. And so it brings in all of the failing samples for the project. One thing to note is this is the custom name that you type in for your sample. We have talked to them about maybe adding the sample ID here. That would make it a little easier, probably, to make sure that we're putting our disposition on the right thing. If you add multiple line items to the same sample, as you can see, this one here is named Type A backfill, and this one is also Type A backfill. That's because both of these line items were added to the sample. So if you add a disposition to one, it's going to add it to the other one automatically because it all goes to the same sample. Anyway, I just chose the first one here, this plastic soil blanket that failed. And I entered a little, you can just hit add disposition and type what you want and save, and you're done, right? So it's pretty simple, even when you're in the field on your iPad app, to go in and enter your dispositions. So as soon as you see a failing sample, we recommend you go ahead and put that disposition in there if you know it. If you're waiting on sample results where you turned in 2 additional samples to get tested, then once you get those results, then you could link, basically copy and paste those sample IDs here, see this sample. I wanted to I know that Luana Canvas, who was our materials lab engineer for a while, she worked on a new EDSM. So if you guys have not seen this, this is, I want to say it's, let me find I think it's EDSM 3512. Yeah, here it is right here. So this is about the sample plan and turning in your audits and kind of what the most current procedure is. It goes through some of your sample plan stuff, and it does allow for any approved software, which means HeadLight. So that actually works as well as Site Manager. But I wanted to see disposition of failing results. Maybe I can zoom in here so you can see it. Here's a few examples of what dispositions are. Here's what I was talking about: 2 check samples passed, material not used on project. So here are some examples if you guys are looking for what you should put in that box while you're in the field. Sometimes the PE likes to do this part, sometimes the inspectors do it, or sometimes the Tech 7. So whatever you use in your office, just make sure you guys are all on the same page with what you're entering in there. Sorry, I got a lot of tabs open. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Okay, so I entered a disposition here, which is just an example for the webinar. And you can go into, I've already downloaded it. I actually created and downloaded this because obviously running a 2059 or an ATM takes a little while. Even on the HeadLight software, it takes a few minutes to download it. So I went ahead and pre-did that. You can see here I have 1 error in omission on this job, and I'll show you where we can get that. The HeadLight ATM, which is just a form, it should be in your forms list. If you've not had a chance to go look at it, please go take a look at it and actually send us any feedback you have, because it's brand new. I doubt that anybody's even used it on a project yet. So if you have feedback on the way it looks or functions, please send those in to us. But you can see here under errors excuse me, errors and omissions, you can see the description that I typed in, right? So what I put in sample plan here shows up on the ATM here, which is exactly what we would expect. We'll close that down, and then you can see there's disposition of failing samples here. When you display that, you see there's nothing in the other ones because they have not been completed yet, but this is where I typed in an example and go back here. So what I typed into disposition of failing samples in this spreadsheet shows up in the ATM here. So the great part about this being all in one place is you can also just go through here one at a time and just, all at one time and get all your dispositions in and make sure you're caught up on your job. So not too much today. I didn't want to overload you guys. I know I talk too much sometimes about this, but we have lots of stuff to share, and trying to keep everybody up to date on what we're doing sometimes can be difficult. So hopefully that helps you and helps you understand where you should put in your dispositions and your errors and omissions. Phil, that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Les. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions about what Les kind of discussed in regards to the sample disposition, or anything that you guys want to dive in a little bit deeper? Hopefully we can help you guys figure those things out. I know that is a very important part when it comes down to materials verification.
Hey, Phil, it's Kevin. Somebody had asked me that if you have two crews, you have two inspectors on a job at the same time with two different crews,
Yes.
and they would type in two crews, and one crew would like disappear, like, because you can only have one crew because they want a job at the same time, the same night, and two separate crews, but only one crew was being recorded. That's what they were telling me.
Okay, only one crew. Can you kind of give me specifics in regards to that, Kevin? So I'm trying to gather my thoughts in regards to it. So you're saying two crews are there at night
At the same time.
At the same time. Is it the same type of crew? Is it different crews?
It was the same type of crew working in two different areas.
Okay.
And they were saying it was like overwriting it or something.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm assuming this is about personnel from a Fieldbook. This is more of a Fieldbook question, right?
Correct.
Okay. So both of those crews are there, and it was kind of overwriting it. I think this is something where we would have to really distinguish the difference between those two crews some sort of way in order to jot those down. So they're working on two ends of the project?
Correct.
Okay. How often does this happen?
I'd like to jump in here, Phil. It shouldn't matter. So if two separate inspectors are documenting two separate crews, it shouldn't overwrite unless they were trying to use the same account or something like that, which they should not be doing. But if they're logged in as two separate users, then it should document that HeadLight software should capture whatever they're putting into the spreadsheet.
I think it was one inspector, two crews the same. Am I correct?
No, it was two different inspectors.
Oh, it's two different inspectors? Oh, no, they shouldn't have any problem. I
Okay.
think that's what I was having a hard time trying to understand, if it's one inspector with two of the same crews.
No, it was two different inspectors. I have to ask him, he came in the other day and asked me that question.
Yeah.
But I'll get more detail and get back with you.
They
Okay,
weren't using the same iPad, was it?
No, they said they had two different iPads.
gotcha. Okay.
They could be doing something wrong. I'll get back to them and get with them, and maybe we can all have a conversation about us three.
Yes, that'd be great.
I can tell you guys, if I can say something on that,
Sure.
what we run into is that if we have two inspectors on a separate side of the project, and you have two different crews, same contractor, and so forth like that, as long as they generate, like one inspector generates their report separately from the other inspector, HeadLight's separating it. But however, when it feeds into site manager adds it all together.
Gotcha.
I think that's what they were saying.
Okay.
And basically what would happen is then it only shows like they had one crew.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. That's
So
correct.
Kevin knows a little bit more about it than me, but that's what it sounded like he was saying, what Kevin said.
Hey, Les, can you answer to that one? Have you
I've not heard that before. So you're saying when they both submit their reports, Kevin, that in Site Manager, it all goes under one report?
Yes. Well, it's not that it's going under one report. What happens is that when you go into Site Manager and you generate the diary, when the project engineer authorizes each of their DWRs, you go pull up the reports on the DOTD intranet. Everything's all added together. It doesn't show it as two separate crews. See, like way back when they had handwritten diaries, they had the ability to keep two separate crews. Okay, to say like, all right, construction, a concrete crew working on one end and the asphalt crew on the other end. But however, though, it's just that with the introduction of Site Manager, it was adding it all together instead of showing it as two separate crews.
I got you. So in the, not in the daily work report, when you approve the 2 daily work reports, the diary shows, say if it was 2 crews that had 6 people each, 6 laborers each, it would show 12 laborers in the diary.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's correct, and that's the way it's supposed to work. What I would recommend, if they need to distinguish those two, is that you type into the description or the remarks for those crews, this crew worked on the east end of the project, whatever, and this crew worked on the west end of the project, and that would give you the documentation you need to know that it was 2 separate crews. In HeadLight, I mean, you know. That's a great one. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Both Kevins.
Sure.
Appreciate
And
you.
Les, let me ask you this. I must have missed it. I was looking at my materials app at the same time. Where did you say to go to get to that form for the ATM? How do we get to that?
Actually, Brandon usually just sent me a message in the chat here. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know that that's been turned on to all projects yet.
Okay.
So we can work with HeadLight to start getting those turned on.
Okay. All right.
Patrick, do you remember, are we good? I hope Patrick's still on here. I can't see everybody. Are we still good to go with turning the ATM on for everybody? He might have had to hop on.
He's on. I think he's just on mute, so he might be on another call or something.
But okay, we'll work with HeadLight. Kevin, or whoever wants it, go ahead and send me a list of the projects you'd like to see it on, and then we'll work with HeadLight. We might just turn it on to everybody because it's pretty close. I'd like to at least start testing it. So,
all right, 10-4.
Awesome. Thank you. So Les, I'll pretty much turn it over to you if eConstruction has any updates or things that they want to go over in regards to like the EEO and stuff like that. Feel free to do so.
yeah, we sent the newsletter out earlier. You know, there's lots of information in there. Might be information overload. Let me know. Give us some feedback if I'm giving y'all too much in those newsletters or whatever. But yeah, so compliance is looking for, you know, those EEO boards, especially at the beginning of the project. They actually use HeadLight. They can view it through Portal. And so they go in and looking for that stuff. Other than that, you know, you guys can read the newsletter. I'm not going to go through all of that information, but one thing we do want, we kind of touched on it earlier. We have been working with HeadLight. Phil and Kevin and I went to District 2 last month and switched out all of the 2019 model iPads. And so I think we got a pretty decent process ironed out there, and it went pretty smoothly. We did the whole district in one day. And so be looking for us to be in your district soon, switching out iPads. So if if your groups have old ones, we'll be there before too long. And, you know, as we said earlier, Wade, yours is next. So we'll be in 03 as soon as the iPads they're on order already. As soon as they come in, we'll be out that way. I think that's all we have, Philip.
Thanks, Les. I'll also like to add for you guys, we do have Q&A session, which is going to be on next week. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, anything that you want to bring to the table that others might be experiencing, feel free to drop into that Q&A session. We would love to have you guys. That session is an hour, and it's devoted to anything and everything eConstruction or HeadLight related that we can assist or help you guys with. Following that, we do have another micro learning session at the end of the month. Those micro sessions are very quick and to the point. We'll be kind of diving once again into the whole finding samples as well as being able to access samples and forms. Okay, so that session is going to be 20 minutes to 30 minutes, with 20 minutes being demonstration and sandbox time, as well as a 10-minute kind of like a Q&A to follow that. All right, so that's also inside of the newsletter as well. We also have in the newsletter some helpful tips. I don't know if you guys have been picking up on those, but we've had a total of 12 helpful tips that can bring you from point A to point B in regards to building your daily work report. So make sure that you guys go in there and you read up on those helpful tips inside of the newsletter. Before we go, I want to go ahead and give you guys, 2 or 3 minutes to ask any last minute questions that you guys might have, whether it may be related to the demonstration that we did on today or some of those trainings, Q&A session that we have coming up. If you guys have any questions about those.
I have a generic question on the forms on the Fieldbook side.
Yes.
I'm totally unfamiliar with it. Is that just to look at the forms or is that to create something?
You can create those forms. You can go in there and enter that information onto those forms, as well as you will be able to view those forms as well on the project. So for example, for you, David, you would be able to, if Sean created one overnight, you would be able to view his, as well as vice versa. He would be able to view yours. But you can also create those specific forms as well.
Gotcha. And we did have, this is speaking to my ignorance again. Forever and ever, when we started, when you created a report, the report, with HDR came up naturally, automatically.
Yes.
And so I didn't realize that was actually a pull down menu that you can choose what type of document that is. So it some kind of way reset itself for the Seymour project to quantity adjustment.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, this thing's broke. And Steve Harity actually figured it out that we go in there, and I don't know why it just changed overnight to default into quality adjustment, and I don't know how to re-default it back to the HDR. So now every one I've got to go in there and pick the HDR.
Don't worry about that, David. We're actually working on the back end to get that changed, but you guys have like you said earlier, it's its own beast, right? So it actually changed when we created that specific document for you guys, which is the quantity adjustments. But yeah, we're working on that on the back end to get that fixed to where you can go back to hitting my daily and you'll automatically have the LEDOTD HDR pop up. Okay.
Thank you so much. Look, I'm a caveman with a club sitting behind this thing.
No, you're good. I appreciate the questions. You never know who's out there who might be experiencing the same thing. So always appreciative of the feedback that you guys bring. So I want to go ahead and tell everybody, thank you guys for attending on today. Hopefully we'll catch you guys and see you guys at the Q&A as well as the micro learning tutorial and also on next month. So thank you guys for taking out the time. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure you guys could have been anywhere else. So thank you so much. And we want to go ahead and give you 4 minutes back into your day. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.